In many anime, death is often used as a tool for shock value. Events meant to create tension or drive a momentary emotional response from the audience. But once the impact wears off, you realize some of these deaths don't leave a lasting effect. They fade, becoming mere plot devices. Ace's death in One Piece, however, transcends this trope. It's not just a narrative shock. It reshapes the entire course of the story, and most importantly, it redefines Luffy as a character. Let's explore why Ace's death works so well, and how it stands out in contrast to other anime deaths that often lack long-term significance. First, consider the build-up to Ace's death. It wasn't random or sudden, it was the culmination of several arcs. From the moment Luffy learns that Ace is captured, the stakes are clear. Luffy risks everything. Braving Impel Down and then the Marineford War. Every step in this journey is a deliberate choice driven by Luffy's desire to save Ace. The entire saga is emotionally charged because the audience has been primed for this confrontation. We are deeply invested in their bond as brothers, and this isn't just because we saw them grow up together. We've seen how Ace has shaped Luffy's identity. He was Luffy's anchor, the embodiment of family and brotherhood, in a world where Luffy's crew became his family. So, Ace's capture isn't just a plot point. It's a direct attack on Luffy's core values. Compare this to deaths in other anime where characters die without such build-up. In those cases, the death feels hollow, like in Sword Art Online, where secondary characters sometimes perish, but their relationships to the protagonist haven't been established deeply enough. These deaths serve more as momentary plot escalations rather than deep, emotional turning points for the protagonist. With Ace, we've journeyed with him, and his death carries years of storytelling weight. It means something not just because of who he is, but because of what he represents to Luffy. When Ace dies, it's not just a shock to the audience, it breaks Luffy. We see this in how One Piece handles the aftermath. Luffy doesn't just mourn, he collapses into despair. This isn't a typical shonen reaction where the protagonist becomes fueled by rage and immediately seeks revenge. Instead, Luffy is lost, confused, and devastated, which is a far more realistic response to loss. Ace was Luffy's emotional anchor, and when he dies, Luffy's purpose is shattered. This is significant because it forces Luffy to confront a new reality. He isn't invincible, and not everyone can be saved. In contrast, many anime deaths don't have this ripple effect. Take Neji's death in Naruto. While Neji was an important character, his death felt more like a device to push Naruto and Hinata together, rather than a transformative moment for Naruto himself. After Neji's death, Naruto doesn't undergo a profound internal change, nor does the narrative take time to explore the full ramifications of losing someone so close. It's a moment that evokes sadness, sure, but it lacks the lingering impact that Ace's death has on Luffy and the plot of One Piece. Luffy's emotional spiral after Ace's death also signals one of the most important turning points in his development. Up until this moment, Luffy had always been driven by optimism and a childlike belief that he could overcome anything. He's defeated powerful enemies like Crocodile and Enel, seemingly invisible figures who stood as obstacles to his goal of becoming Pirate King. But Ace's death reminds Luffy and the audience that there are things outside of his control. No matter how strong or determined he is, it's a humbling moment for Luffy. And this is something that isn't often explored in shonen protagonists. We rarely see heroes experience this level of vulnerability. The weight of Ace's death pushes Luffy to realize that his crew, his chosen family, is just as important. In fact, Ace's final words to Luffy, "Thank you for loving me," cement this idea. Ace dies feeling fulfilled, knowing that he was loved, but his death leaves Luffy with the understanding that love alone isn't enough. He needs to grow stronger, not just in strength, but in wisdom and responsibility. This moment forces Luffy to acknowledge that his journey isn't just about chasing his dream, but about protecting those who walk beside him. Ace's death works so well because it isn't just an end, it's a catalyst for change. It forces Luffy into a new phase of maturity, something that is lacking in many other anime deaths, where the protagonist's emotional journey remains largely unaffected by loss. In Dragon Ball Z, for instance, deaths are often reversed or minimized through mechanisms like the Dragon Balls, which cheapens the emotional weight of those moments. Characters die and come back, so their sacrifices don't carry the same level of permanence. There is no lasting change. Ace's death, on the other hand, carries with it a sense of permanence. There's no magical reset button, no second chance, and it's this finality that drives home the impact. The audience, like Luffy, has to confront the harsh reality of death in a world where Luffy's optimism alone won't be enough. It's a moment that teaches Luffy, and by extension the audience, that growth comes from pain. Luffy's dream of becoming Pirate King is still alive, but Ace's death reshapes how he will approach that dream. No longer is it a carefree adventure. It's now a journey underscored by the weight of responsibility and the need to protect those he loves. What makes Ace's death even more powerful is how the narrative doesn't rush past it. One Piece takes time to explore Luffy's grief, showing him grappling with failure. And this further deepens the emotional stakes for the audience. It sets a new standard for how deaths in anime should be handled, showing that they can serve as pivotal moments for character development rather than mere plot devices. In the end, Ace's death is a narrative success because it reshapes both Luffy and the story itself. It's not just a tragic moment, it's a turning point that propels Luffy into a new phase of growth. One where he must navigate the world with understanding that he can't protect everyone, and that real strength comes from learning how to carry the weight of loss.